We are going to pursue a series all the way through on the personal knowledge of God. Not merely knowledge about God, but the knowledge of God, knowing God in personal experience. And I'll be sharing with you things that will strain your credulity by way of experiences in the area of the knowledge of God. And if you will follow with me through, I guess tonight we have more time. Midnight? Not later anyhow. You will, I believe, find that you have a new appreciation of God, relationship with God. In fact, I would say that if your heart is in it, and you bring your heart, that many of you will get a new direction and find a new dimension in your Christian experience. That is not an overstatement. Now, I teach these things all over the world every year, and I know precisely what I say when I'm saying these things. Now, for this morning, within the time limit, I'm going to take you to one of the key problems and key solutions to problems which many people have in their hearts, questions that have never been answered, solutions that have never been found. We're going to try and find those things in the Word this morning. Time is against us, but I'll manage to convey the essence to your heart at least. I'm taking you to the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 1. The burden which Habakkuk, the prophet, did see. The last statement of the last verse of the last chapter in the book, to the chief singer, a nine-stringed instrument. Now I'm going to speak very concisely, very succinctly, so follow me very closely because of the limitation of time. I have to boil things down. The prophet did see. The last statement of the last verse of the last chapter in the book, to the chief singer, a nine-stringed instrument. Now I'm going to speak very concisely, very succinctly, so follow me very closely because of the limitation of time. I have to boil things down without boiling them up. Now, this is a strange text, and yet it is full of meaning, especially for those of God's people who have gone or are going through deep waters, carry problems they cannot understand, questionings that find no answer but an empty echo of another question. We're going to try and find what God has to say on that. Now, notice that in the beginning, the prophet here is burdened. In fact, we have here the perplexed prophet. This man of God was very perplexed. And this morning we have a word for those who are perplexed, irrespective of the nature of their perplexity. In the beginning, the prophet is burdened. He is heavy. He is wandering. He carries a weight on his shoulder, so to speak, in his soul. At the end of the book, the man is singing. In the beginning, he has a burden. At the end, he has a song. Now, in between these two extremes, we have God's solution of changing our burdens into a song. Can you follow me? God's solution of turning our burdens into a song. Now, in this book, we have 3 verses with 3 words that constitute what in Bible school we call key words to the book. These 3 key words represent 3 different problems which constitute the burden, the weight, the heaviness under which this prophet is laboring. Now, one is found in verse 2, chapter 1. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? How long? Have you ever asked the Lord, Lord, how long till you come and heal me? How long till my boy comes back home from his wandering ways? How long until my girl, my daughter, comes to her senses and turns around, comes back to the ways of the Lord? How long? Well, there are so ever many different kinds of how longs. How long, Lord, do I have to put up with that man of mine till he gets saved? There are wives like that. How long do I have to put up with this creature? How long do I have to take those insults? Lord, how long till you bring that man to the altar, or whatever? You get the principle. In verse 3, same chapter 1, why? Why dost thou show me iniquity? Now you read the verse, and you find that what bothered Habakkuk was the iniquity that abounded in those days without apparent interference or even interest by God. God, why don't you clean up Watergate? God, why do you let crime go on? A lady said to me, Brother Beuttler, why does God let the devil live? Well, that's an easy one. I said, because he needs him for you. Didn't ask me another question. Well, we have no time to elaborate, but why? How many people carry a why in their heart? Why, Lord? Only this morning I was thinking a why of my own. Some years ago I was going to Tokyo at the Los Angeles airport, picked up my suitcase, fairly heavy. A boy sat in front of it. I didn't want to bother him, so I bent over him and lifted up my case over him. And I got something in my back that I'm in constant pain in this very time I'm speaking to you. Nobody knows what to do with it. I had trouble ever since. All I tried to do was be nice to the boy and not chase him. When I should have picked it up like this, I'd been way over it. You remember that. There are worse ways than that. Why did my boy not come back from Vietnam? My brother in Germany was killed near Moscow during the war. My mother never got over it. Why did it have to be my boy? Why did it have to happen to us? My sister contracted polio before she was born. She's 64, 5 years younger than I. All these years, that girl has been a cripple. Today, she's in a state place because of 1,000 marks a month. Nobody can keep her. She never complains, but she said to me, Walter, do you have an answer? Why did it have to be me to contract polio before I was even born? What you're going to say? Why did it have to happen to us? Some years ago, I was teaching at the Commonwealth Bible College in Brisbane, Australia. I get there quite often. And had the students there. At night, we all went down to the Central Assembly. Students came down as they could. One came down on a motorcycle. All right, and we all went back out to the college for the night. And during the night, I heard noises at the principal's house where I was staying, and peeked out of the door. 2 o'clock about. I saw the Australian State Police. I said, "Sir, is anything wrong?" "Yes. One of the students got killed on the way home from church." Here he went downtown to hear Brother Beuttler speak. On the way home, he cut it too short around the corner and got killed. Why? I had a camp meeting in Melbourne, Australia. A man drove over quite a distance to hear Brother Beuttler speak. He had an automobile accident and got killed. You wonder what's wrong with you. We had a student in Bible college where I was teaching. He was there because I was teaching there. He got killed. Don't stay home tonight now. I had nothing to do with it. But why? People ask why. Why did it have to be me? Why did I have to do this as a result of which that happened? What you're going to say? But we'll see what God says. In the same chapter, verse 13, "Wherefore lookest thou upon them that deal treacherously?" Now, the essence here is, Lord, why do you permit the wicked treatment of the righteous at the hands of the wicked? During the last war, we had a pastor in Philadelphia, large church, who went to the rationing board for oil. He applied for 500 gallons of oil for the winter to heat his house. They gave him 250. The man says, "Gentlemen, I need 500. They said, "You get 250. They said, "We assume that everyone who comes in here is a liar and asks for twice as much as they really need." So he said, "But I'm the pastor of such and such a church. I don't lie." And he was told, "If you don't lie, that's your hard luck. You get 250 like everybody else." Lord, why do you permit the unrighteous treatment of your people at the hands of the wicked without doing anything about it? I'm condensing this very much, but you get the essence. So here you have this man perplexed, troubled with how long. And there are 1,001 how longs in people's hearts. I get all over the world every year, and you talk with people, and wherever it is, people have problems for which they are struggling for an answer. There is none. But with him. How long? Wherefore? Now look what this man did with his problem. You see, we are influenced by the age in which we live. We want everything instant. Now this is generalizing, but you understand. We want instant prosperity. We want instant health by popping all kinds of pills by the hundreds. We want instant security. We want instant tea and instant coffee and instant joy and instant religion. Everything quick by the push button. And God has not changed his ways to our push button age. God is still adhering to these principles in his word. God is not hurrying. When I was in school, I used to get phone calls. Brother Beuttler, I have a problem. Something's wrong with my head. Well, you ask the Lord what's wrong with it. You say, well, have you asked yourself? I haven't got the time. That's why I'm calling you. Instant. I got a request from a lady, Brother Beuttler, would you ask the Lord whether it's all right for me to shave the hair off my legs? Instant. You think I prayed? Oh, I did not. I'm not in the hair shaving business. They can't be bothered. So they bother the preacher. Folks, that's a Beuttlerism. The average Christian today is just too lazy to take their problem to God. They rather pick up the telephone. What do you think? I don't agree with that. What do you think? I know who's got the answer. What do you think? Really? You don't think so? They don't want usually answers. They want confirmation. And sooner or later, one fool will always find a bigger fool to agree with him. People shop around for confirmation rather than real solutions. Now, in chapter 2, this man said, I will stand upon my watch, and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will answer, what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. This man expected to be reproved. Now he said, I'll set me upon the tower, and watch to see what he will say. In other words, this man took his how longs, his whys, and his wherefores to God. He didn't call up every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the hope of finding somebody to agree with him. He went to God and he said, I'm going to stay. We don't stay long enough before God. We are hardly on our knees 2 minutes when we're ready for a Coke and a hoagie or whatever you call them down here. He said, I'll stay put. You know, I often used to wonder about these towers in the Bible. One year I was asked to speak at the consulate or the chapel of the different consular officials in the city of Damascus. And while there, one of the men took me around on the Monday, and to my amazement, here were these towers of the Bible. Oh, I'd say I could see about maybe 6 at any given time from any place. I took good note of them, but I'll save the time. But up there, about 18 feet high, they had a room up there. And the owner of a field could go up there in blessed isolation, sleep, or watch his fields against the robbers and the like. And apparently this man, Habakkuk, went up to one of those towers and shut himself up and waited until he had an answer from God. For those of you that are interested, by way of parenthesis, the street called Straight in the book of Acts is still there. You've read about the street called Straight. Long Street, as straight could be. They call it Straight Street. There, the very same street is still there. Now then, he went to God. I've shut myself up in the hotel already for a week in fasting and prayer, in fact, several times. And we need to take our problem to God and stick with it until we get an answer. I'll have to drop that. My time is up. In the next So in the same chapter, in verse 4, God gives him an answer and said, "The just shall live by faith." Now this is the heart of it. "The just shall live by faith in the faithfulness of God." That's the way it is in the Hebrew. Now, I'll boil it down because my time is really up. I'll boil it down like this. God answered this man. God still answers. But God's answer is not necessarily the answer to our question. For the answer to our question is not necessarily the answer to our need which underlies the question. God didn't give him, Habakkuk, 2.5 more years. That did not answer his problem. So God did not answer his question. But God answered the need that was underlying his question. God was saying that just shall live by faith in the faithfulness of God. In other words, Habakkuk, never mind your how long. Don't ask anymore how long. Don't ask anymore why. Don't ask anymore wherefore. That will not answer your problem. Now it might answer your question, but not the problem. The true problem here lies in lifting our eyes up and beholding God, as it were, in his unimpeachable character, having a confidence in the faithfulness of God, in the veracity of his word, in the impeccable, unimpeachable character of God, in spite of what he does or doesn't do. So that the person no longer asks, "Why did you?" or "Why didn't you?" But it will lift up its faith in the character of God and say like one of those, "Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" God knows what he's doing. God knows why he permits. God is absolutely righteous. There is no fault in him. And this faith says, I will no longer ask questions. I will believe in the unimpeachable integrity of Almighty God, and for grace to sustain me in spite of my whys and wherefores and how longs. When I had this attack in Bangkok, Thailand, just a few months back, Mrs. Pilgrim was with me, gasping for breath, he told the Lord, "Lord, I'm afraid our boat is sinking." And I was gasping for breath, and it looked like the end. But he can testify. I wouldn't question God. I'd say, God lives. God's good. Affirming the character and unfailing faithfulness of God in spite of the fact that it looked like I was going to perish there in that hotel room, in a strange country, in a strange land, strange place, knowing nobody. The just shall live by faith in the faithfulness of God. I've not treated this fully enough for lack of time. I'm over, I must close up. But trust you get the essence. Why? Never mind why. God is good. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Habakkuk got it in closing now. Although in verse 17, the last chapter, the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall the fruit be in the vine. In other words, even though the apples and the pears are falling to the ground prematurely, the labor of the olive shall fail, the field shall yield no meat, and there shall be no steak in the refrigerator, and no meat in the A&P. And the cows are all killed off, and before there is no more, there shall be no herd in the stalls, they're ate up. Might as well make it right. Bring it up to date. This is the updated version. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength. Here I should have a half an hour. And he will make my feet like hinds' feet. That needs explanation. And he will make me to walk upon mine high places, to the chief singer on my stringed instruments. Now what you have here is this. This man has now turned from his burden and questioning to the place of victory through faith, triumph through faith. He triumphed over all his questions without their answer, because his faith is no longer in what God does or why he does it, but because his faith is now in what God is, in spite of what he does or doesn't do. So he has entered the rest of faith, the joy of faith, the strength of faith, the log of faith, the song of faith. The man is now singing. Nothing has been changed. He has been changed. His attitude is changed. Now the man sings. In the beginning, troubled, burdened, weighed down. How long? Lord, I can't understand it. Wherefore do you? No more. To the chief singer on my stringed instruments, he takes his song, hands it to the choir, and the choir leader, come on, Susie, let's sing the song of faith in the character of God in spite of what he does or doesn't do. Friends, that is God's solution. The true solution to our how longs, to our whys, and to our wherefores. I think I've done a little poor job because I was pressed so, but I trust you got the point and get some help from it.